Tonight, most people think Australia's treatment of asylum seekers couldn't get worse. The Australian government says, challenge accepted. Also, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott criticises Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews for keeping a campaign promise, apparently unaware of what that says about him. And also, as we approach the 100th anniversary of the Anzac Day Gallipoli landing, the Anzac spirit is on sale! Totally fucked up! G'day viewers and welcome to the video, which I honestly will start doing on Fridays again sometime. I promise, maybe. Starting off this week with Australia's treatment of asylum seekers. The government's revising its migration laws. And, just because they've been called guilty of torture and abuse of human rights, the whiny lefties say they're doing the wrong thing. Oh, and by whiny lefties, I mean Supreme Court judge. Yeah, former Supreme Court judge has said the proposal the government is putting forward would basically directly result in asylum seekers being beaten to death by guards. Because the government's decided, we need protection for the guards. And there's a wording says here, they can use reasonable force if they think they need to. And they've also put provisions in to make it virtually impossible to prosecute someone who works in the detention camps. And lo and behold, people have gone, if you don't define what's reasonable, if you don't define the limits, if you don't have strict controls and repercussions for abusing it, people are gonna fucking abuse it. And it's like, it's not like that happened. Except we've already had an asylum seeker who was in detention beaten to death by people who were just pissed off. There was a bit of a riot going on, but everyone agrees the guy who was killed was not taking part. It was just some pissed off locals caught him on his own and beat him to death. And 2 people were finally charged late last year, but it still hasn't gone to trial. And, it appears everyone apart from the federal government thinks that's dodgy as shit. Their response is, let's just broaden it. Just say, they can use force. No, you don't want to prosecute them? What could possibly go wrong? Yay, Australia, home of bloody detention centres for people who have fled the worst places in the world, and now basically a Supreme Court judge has said the government appears to want to encourage the guards to beat the prisoners to death. And I call it a detention camp. Might as well be a concentration camp. Yes, they are prisoners. The defenders of it say the most ridiculous shit about, that's not what you should call it. They're being held behind barbed wires by really thuggish people with virtually no training who now will have more protection than actual cops do if cops use force on someone. If that makes you feel safe, if that's your idea of a decent society, I'm pretty much fucking done talking to you. And this week in Victoria, where I live, the recently elected state government followed through on one of their big campaign promises to shut down development of a very controversial roads project known as the East-West Link. And it looks really bad because they're going, we had to pay about $340 million to these guys who now won't be building the road. It's a very weird and, quite honestly, incredibly dodgy thing. There's one thing, there's the ideology of build more roads as opposed to maybe build public transport. Who knows? The previous recent losers in the state election, the Conservative Liberal government, had pushed for this East-West Link, which was going to cost billions. In fact, recent figures suggest upwards of $10 billion to build. Very questionable. There was no openly publicised study that showed why it was of long-term benefit. Most studies show you build more roads, cars just fill them. It doesn't ease congestion. It moves congestion and cars just spread out to fill and nothing gets any better. And certainly the input and output of this link would have really fucked up the suburbs where that was located. And that was where a lot of the protest was centred. The people whose lives were going to be directly screwed, and they were joined by a lot of people who just thought spending that much money on roads was a bad idea. Anyway, in the lead up to the state election, the then opposition said, we'll can this deal if it goes ahead. The then government said, nah, you won't. Look, we're going to sign a contract just before the election. It just weeks before the election, in a deal that had been largely done in secret, no disclosure of the cost benefit of the whole thing, just before an election where one party said they can go, oh no, we've signed a contract, you can't. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but if being dodgy as fuck was a crime, I think a few of those people would be in trouble. Not least, signing the contract was just an asshole thing to do. There was also what's being known as the side letter, where the then treasurer signed a thing saying to the government, oh, if a future government cans this deal, we promise you all this compensation. It was basically holding a gun to any future government's head saying, you don't get free will in this. Oh, if you get voted in by promising this, so what? We've cut a deal. I'm not saying they're dodgy, corrupt, evil fucking assholes, but I don't notice them standing up providing evidence that would show they're not corrupt, evil, money-hungry assholes. I'm just throwing it out there, guys. If you've got all the stuff that proves you didn't do anything dodgy or questionable, why not table it? So that's a bit of a thing this week. It sounds weird to say they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars for not building a road, but the deal does mean we don't spend $10 billion on a road of dubious value. But the weirdest bit of the whole thing is Tony Abbott. They go, he's being an asshole. That's not weird. That's expected. His default mode of behaviour is be an asshole. But he actually said, oh, I think they're dead. This will kill them. They're doing this. We'll get rid of them. It's how they got elected. It was one of the big things that helped them in the election, pledging to not let this go ahead. It's like Abbott is so used to just fucking lying and absolutely refusing to follow through on things he promised. When someone else promises something and delivers, he just can't work out what's happening. That is who we're dealing with as a Prime Minister. A rude, mean, obnoxious bully who talks shit, who gets confused when someone keeps a political promise. Commercial break. I do want to take a quick break to tell you about something else I've been doing. For most of the last year, I've been working with some people who are doing an event called Game On. It's going to be part of Sydney's Vivid Festival on the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd of May, 2015. If you're watching this sometime in the future, you're too late. But yeah, it's it's like trying to be our local version, sort of like VidCon. It covers online video, YouTubers, Viners, some other things, online gaming, interactive game. It's going to be huge. It's in Sydney. There's a link down below where not only you can find out more about how cool this is, and I'm obviously excited because I've been working on it for a while, but also how if you buy tickets, you can win extra prizes, upgrade your promotion. It's awesome. Just go check it out. And finally, Anzac Day. We're coming up on the 100th anniversary of the Gallipoli landing. I've done lots of videos on this topic in the past, and I will do an Anzac Day video later in the week. But this year, being the 100th anniversary, it's big, it's significant, so significant that it's just being sold in as many gross and gratuitous ways as you can imagine, and probably a few you can't. I actually try to avoid getting on the outrage of the week bandwagon, but this commercialization of Anzac Day is just gross. How it should be commemorated is something that I think is open for debate, but turning it into a commercial product, and it's all sorts of bizarre and stupid things, clothing, the icky Murdoch tabloids going, oh, get your Anzac mateship medals, buy us, and you can get. It's basically, hey look, the Anzac spirit is ours to buy, so you give us money, you mindless consumers. It's really sick. And there was a bizarre twist where one of the big supermarket chains, Woolworths, got quite a razzing on social media and traditional media for a campaign. They were putting images about Anzac Day with the slogan, fresh in our minds. They call themselves the fresh food people. So yeah, fresh, it's us. They never really branded it like Anzac Day, buy from us. But pretty much everyone thought, ooh, that's icky and gross and gratuitous. That's awful. You people are tone deaf. And they're even facing problems from the government. They could face like a $50,000 fine, not for being tacky, but because they didn't pay the government for the right to use the Anzac words and images with their promotion. That's it. It's like, it's not that they were too tacky. It's not that you don't want to use the slaughter of thousands of soldiers to promote a supermarket chain. You just have to pay the government first.